Sunday, December 27. The Fall in Heaven. Question. Read Isaiah chapter 14, verse 4 and verses 12 to 15. What descriptions of the king of Babylon indicate that he is speaking of someone much greater than a mere human ruler? Well, let's look at those verses. Isaiah chapter 14 and verse 4. That you will take up this proverb against the king of Babylon and say, Now the oppressor has ceased, the golden city ceased. And later on in that chapter 14, verses 12 to 15. How you were fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning! How you were cut down to the ground, you who weakened the nations! For you have said in your heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will also sit on the mount of the congregation, on the farthest sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet you shall be brought down to Sheol, to the lowest depths of the pit. No earthly king has ever fallen from heaven, a truth that suggests that verses 12 to 15 are focusing on someone bigger than the king, even of Babylon. Furthermore, the images of ascending to heaven, of being in a position higher than angels, and of presiding over the assembly on the mountain in the far north are all recognized descriptions of deity in the ancient Near East. Satan's ambitions are exposed clearly here in this kind of dual prophecy. Jesus uses a similar tactic in his description of the destruction of Jerusalem in Matthew chapter 24. Although the disciples ask about the destruction of the temple, in his reply, Jesus describes both the destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans in AD 70 and the greater reality of the end of the world. In the same way, Isaiah describes the attributes of an earthly king, but applies it all to something much grander and larger than just a mere human king. Question. Read Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 2 and verses 12 to 19. How is Satan depicted here? Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 2. Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, Thus says the Lord God, because your heart is lifted up, and you say, I am a god, I sit in the seat of gods, in the midst of the seas, yet you are a man and not a god, though you set your heart as the heart of a god. And then verses 12 to 19 of Ezekiel 28. Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, Thus says the Lord God, You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, topaz, and diamond, beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created. You were the anointed cherub who covers. I established you. You were on the holy mountain of God. You walked back and forth in the midst of fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created, till iniquity was found in you. By the abundance of your trading you became sinful with violence within, and you sinned. Therefore I cast you as a profane thing out of the mountain of God. And I destroyed you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the fiery stones. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom for the sake of your splendour. I cast you to the ground. I laid you before kings, that they might gaze at you. You defiled your sanctuaries by the multitude of your iniquities, by the iniquity of your trading. Therefore I brought fire from your midst. It devoured you, and I turned you to ashes upon the earth in the sight of all who saw you. All who knew you among the peoples are astonished at you. You have become a horror, and shall be no more forever. Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13, describes a perfect being present in Eden, the garden of God, one decorated with all the kinds of precious stones later found on the breastplate of the high priest, and one commissioned as a guardian cherub at the throne of God. The perfect being, however, corrupted himself because of his beauty. By using human parallels, these glimpses allow us to understand divine realities. The prophets used that which is closer and more easily understandable in order to explain something that, in and of itself, might be harder for us to understand. What happens in heaven may be difficult for us on earth to grasp, but we are all able to understand the effects of the blatant and destructive political ambitions of earthly rulers. Isaiah and Ezekiel give us insight into the inexplicable transition at some point in history when all that was beautiful and perfect in God's order of things was marred by destructive ambition. And so to finish today, if a perfect being, created by a perfect God, in a perfect environment, could mess himself up because of pride, what should that tell us fallen beings about how deadly this sentiment really is?